Welcome to the Agent Upgrade Podcast with your hosts Jasmine Cronetten and Alan Corey, where we learn the strategies of top producing real estate agents so you have the tools to upgrade your own real estate career.
Skylar, thanks for joining us. Can you introduce yourself for us?
Yeah, Jasmine and Alan, thank you for having me. My name is Skylar Brillante. I'm a realtor with Harry Norman here in Atlanta, Georgia. The brokerage is one of the oldest locally owned brokerages in all of Georgia. And I am just loving the real estate industry. Happy to be here and happy to talk about it with you guys.
Well, we love having you. We appreciate it. I don't know if you're aware of your nickname, but I was told you're Skylar the Dialer. Is that right?
Yo, I haven't even heard that nickname, but I really like that. I would definitely like to call that. Is that
That's what we call you around here, Skylar the Dialer. That's
it. That's awesome. Yeah, no, we could definitely talk about how I imagine I got that nickname, but yeah, that is apparently my nickname.
Yeah, well, I definitely want to dig into that, but you seem like a young guy. How long have you been doing real estate?
So I've been in about just under 2 years now. I tell everybody that I've been licensed for 2 years, but I've been in real estate my whole life. My parents, before I was born and when I was born, they fixed and flipped houses together as a little partnership, mom and dad, and they did that for basically all of my infant years, and then as the business kind of grew a little bit, my dad separated off into strictly the wholesaling game, just flipping contracts. And then my mom kind of stayed in the fixing and flipping game. And then they both kind of did their own thing, then got out of it around 2008, both of them for separate reasons, but around the same time. Mom got out of it because of the crash of 2008. She was a little bit over-leveraged on some of her properties, like a lot of people were. And my dad just had a business partner that didn't end up working out with. But my mom still is she ended up getting her general contractor's license and is now a GC for the last decade since the crash. And then my dad is just in IT now and does that. So that's kind of a little bit of my backstory. But yeah, like I said, been licensed for about 2 years.
That's awesome. So you have basically like, from the get-go, you've known real estate as the path.
Yeah, I mean, I always portray it like that, but I really didn't. When I was growing up, everything that I was going to be in the industry or even involved with what my parents were doing. And it was kind of a surprise that I got into it on my own. And then it just so happened to work out that once I got seriously invested into it, I realized, hey, wait a second, my parents have been doing this their whole life and I never really appreciated it until now. So
did they include you in any of their work growing up, or you just were around it and heard the conversations and stuff?
Yeah, like in terms of proximity, I was included, like I was nearby, but I wasn't like involved in the actual job or like, I think the only time I've ever was actually involved in the labor part of it was I like cleaned up one of my mom's job sites once just to make a couple extra dollars. But in terms of actually being involved in the bulk of it, I really wasn't. Growing up when I was much younger, I had to be with them on a lot of the job sites. So I was just there kind of absorbing it subconsciously. And then throughout the years, I kind of didn't really care too much about it and kind of removed myself from it. And then, like I said, I personally got seriously invested in real estate. And then that kind of brought me back to wanting to talk to my parents about their business and kind of getting more involved with it. So.
Does your mom use you as a realtor now on her flips?
So, like I said, she's just a GC because she doesn't want to over-leverage her money anymore. But she does rely on me for a lot of advice, and same goes for her. I rely on her for a lot of advice and suggestions and stuff. So we kind of play off of each other. Don't really directly do any business together, but definitely just kind of use each other as good, communication sources and advice and stuff like that.
Well, you got on our radar because you're young, less than 2 years, and you're killing it out there. And maybe that's how you earned your nickname. Can you maybe tell us your secret sauce and maybe some other agents starting out, sort of what you're doing to be Skylar the Dialer?
Yeah, it's no secret sauce. It's just working hard and calling as many people as possible. But yeah, that's how I got the name Skylar Dialer, I guess, is because I'm willing to call until my ears bleed every day. And so, figuratively speaking, I'm not really having ears bleed. But I cold call. That was how I've kind of created the business that I have now. and still continue to cold call. And that's really the name of my game.
Is it
I love it.
Targeted cold call, or are you pulling up, a certain data set that you're focusing on, or farming a neighborhood, or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. So I do kind of the last thing you said, which is farm a neighborhood as much as as much as possible. Which for me, I do target for sale by owners a lot. That is a part of it, but that's a very small part of who I cold call. The bulk of who I cold call is kind of the last thing that you mentioned, which is neighborhoods. The specific program I use just allows me to kind of use a Google Map interface and go through, what would looks like Google Maps and just kind of select areas or select neighborhoods or subdivisions, and it'll just retrieve as many property owners' phone numbers for me as it possibly can. So my theory with this is that I'm essentially trying to build relationships with as many people that own the property that I want to sell, that live in the neighborhoods that I want to sell in, and that essentially will start branding myself through to kind of create that lifelong relationship, whether they want to do business now or not.
I love it. I wanna know more about this. I know that people talk about like cold calls. Like most people hear that and they're like, it doesn't sound very appealing. Nobody really likes to, but but I want to know what the magic behind it is, like psychologically, mentally, like how do you get yourself into that space? Because like I imagine if you're just cold calling people, they're going to be like, hang up, like I don't want to talk to you. And how, like, talk to me about your mental space and how do you get hyped up about like, okay, I'm going to make 100 calls today, or however, how many calls do you make every day? I think you make a lot of calls every day.
I do. 100 was a good place to start. It is about a bare minimum 100 a day, but generally like 200 to sometimes 300 a day. And this is all through a dialer, so it's not manual. It's a program dialing for me, but it is me trying to talk to as many of these 300 or 200 people as possible.
Amazing.
And then to kind of answer your question about the psychology behind it, I didn't come up with all these ideas or these practices just kind of out of my butt one day. It's through relying on knowledge from coaches online and kind of looking to them for resources. But with that being said, what I do when I call these people is one, I want to sound like a human being. I want to introduce myself and ask how they're doing today. It sounds silly, but just asking how they're doing today, and then I'll even do like a little bit of as much as I can small talk and be like, oh, well, I'm doing good too. Just hoping we get some sunshine outside later today or something like that, and just kind of get them. The theory is not talking about real estate for a second. Sure, a lot of people are just going to maybe not respond or just kind of say the whole get on with the point, Skylar. But at the end of the day, I just want to loosen them up as much as I can and make them not feel like this is your everyday sales call. And then from there, once I ask how they're doing, kind of get a feel for them. I'm just going to basically go into that. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but there was a house around the corner from you that just sold and didn't know if there's anything I could do for you today. Didn't know if there's any way I could help you, phrases of that nature. I'm not trying to ever mention the words, are you looking to buy or sell? I'm not trying to come off as a salesman. People, generally speaking, have their guards up for that type of lingo nowadays. They don't want to be sold. And at the end of the day, my intentions are just that. I don't want to sell anybody. Sure, I'm happy to help you, but I just want to do whatever you need help with. I want to do whatever you'd like me to do for you. And if you requiring my help to buy or sell a house is what you need, then I'm happy to do that. But I just want to ask what I can do to help them. Most people, like typical cold call goes, says there's nothing you can do for me today, Skylar. We've been here for 20 years. We're not going to move. And I said, great. Well, if you guys were to ever do something in the future, or if you ever did need the help, do you have an agent nearby that you would work with? And that gets them talking, and they usually say either yes or no. A lot of people do say yes because we're in a big metropolitan city where there are a lot of agents, and a lot of people do have access to those. But for the people that do say, no, we don't have an agent we'd use, but we're not moving anytime soon, I said, great. Well, I know you're not making any changes, but I always like to build relationships with people. So if you do ever need the help, say 5 or 10 years down the road, you have somebody you can call. And so I said, would it be all right if we just stayed in touch? They say, yeah, Scott. I said, great. What's a good email for you? And I get their email, get their phone, already have their phone number, get their names and everything. And then I basically file them all into a database, send a weekly email out to them. And this is kind of my my start for, not really start, but this is my base for who I'm branding myself to. Are people that live in the areas that I want to do business in that maybe don't want to do business right now, but if they were to ever sell or buy something, they don't have an agent that use, and now that leaves me a position to start branding myself through them and be that agent that they would use if they did ever buy or sell something. So
that's amazing.
That's awesome.
I love that. So if someone says they do have an agent, you just say, you carry on. You just say, "All right, nice talking to you," or you try to
hang up on it. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
That agent's an idiot.
Yeah, just respectively. Yeah, no, if the conversation's going well and we're really talking and jiving off each other, but they do say they have an agent, maybe I'll ask them who that agent is. I might have done a deal with them before. Like I said, if we have a good conversation and they tell me they have an agent and I ask them who that agent is, sometimes they can't remember their agent's name. I say, okay, well, it sounds like you might not remember them to call them if you did ever need them. Would it be all right if I just use my information as a backup? And then if it's just a very, on the alternative scenario, if it's a very, what's the word I'm looking for? If we're not getting off to a good start, or if maybe it's not flowing very well, it's obvious that they don't really want to be on the phone with me, then I'll just leave it at that. I'll just say, hey, great, it sounds like you're in good hands. You do have my number now in case you ever need me in the future. Feel free to give me a call. So that's kind of how I handle that.
Wow, this is awesome. You're young, but I'll tell you, man, you're gonna kill it. Just keep you're doing it already, but just keep this up over time. It's just going to build upon itself. You mentioned a few things. If you mind sharing, you mentioned some software programs you use, some coaching that you've had, maybe some scripts that have been provided to you. Do you mind sharing your resources, or is that sort of Skylar
secret sauce?
Yeah, secret sauce.
Skylar the Miller secret sauce.
No. I'm an open book. I'm happy to share whatever. And I'm glad that you asked for anybody watching that maybe is curious. The program I use to find the phone numbers, I use a specific program called Mojo, M as in man, OJO. But there's plenty of other programs that are basically identical to that out there that you can pay for. With Mojo, it's a monthly subscription. There's no, that's not a yearly contract. It's just a month-to-month contract, so you can cancel or bail out at any point if you want to, if you don't like the program. But for me, it's just so cheap, and I don't like to use that word. Maybe a better word would be is affordable. It's so affordable for the amount of money that I know that other agents are spending on leads and prospecting and lead generation. You spend, in my opinion, next to nothing on Mojo. And if anybody's curious, you can look into the pricing on their website. It is what I say it is, which is affordable. And then with that being said, the other question you asked, which is the coaching part of this whole thing. For me personally, I rely on a specific coach. His name is Ricky Carruth, Ricky, and last name is Carruth, Ricky Carruth. And he's totally free. He doesn't charge you for anything. There's no, it's not a watch my 45-minute free webinar and then I hook you in and try and get you to pay for my coaching. It's none of that. It really is all free. You get complete access to him. You can actually get on one-on-one calls with him for free as long as you put in the work. And he has plans for you on his website and everything. So I hope that's like a little bit of an advertisement for him, because I really do accredit a lot of my success and everything that I've talked about so far to what he preaches. So
okay, great. And so affordable, according to you, is between $100 and $350 a month, depending on what program you have on Mojo. Which I would prefer that. That's very affordable. That's cheaper. That's cheaper than other lead generation devices. And then your coach, he's free. Is he a realtor himself, or he's just a friend or a mentor, or why is he willing to teach you, I guess?
For free.
There's got to be a catch, right?
No kidding. He is not a personal friend of mine. He is as global as he can be. And the thing with him is that he is a realtor. I'm actually glad you asked that, because that's what I always point out to people when I preach, his name and his, practices and everything, is that a lot of the coaches, because I've learned and watched a lot of other coaches, I've learned from a lot of other coaches, never really paid for anybody, but just watched their free content on YouTube and everything to get enough of an idea for what they talk about. And I realized that a lot of other real estate coaches have maybe sold real estate for 2 years. They maybe never even sold at all, or they sold 12 properties and then felt like they were a guru. Or really what I'm noticing is a lot of them are just good at coaching people. And that's what they just have that kind of that blood in them to be able to coach people and to motivate people and hype people up. And they know enough about lead generation. It's not that they know a lot about real estate. It's that they know how to create a business and be entrepreneurial. And so a lot of these coaches out here don't have that first, that first world experience of actually selling a lot of property or doing a lot of business. They just know how to coach people. So with the guy that I just talked about, Ricky, he actually does actively sell real estate in Alabama. His market is specifically Gulf Shores, which is a beach in Alabama, which most people don't even realize that there's a beach in Alabama.
There is, right?
It's like the very tip of, or I should say the very bottom of Alabama. And he himself produces over 100 units a year, 100 properties a year, does over million in GCI. This is all by himself. He has one assistant, but he doesn't have buyer's agents. He doesn't have a large team. It's just him producing on top of also running a totally free coaching business. He has his own real estate team as well. Even though I just said he doesn't have a team, he runs a, I don't know what I'd call it, but it's not his own personal team, but he does run a team through EXP Realty, which is a kind of a new age platform for people to run their brokerage or run their real estate business on. But I'm not a part of EXP, so I'm not going to really talk about it too much.
Harry Norman, going strong since 1930, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I've got a few. I've always been curious about this. So you mentioned this too, and I see it on their website. Mojo, they can kind of call 3 people at once. What happens if it goes to voicemail? What happens if 3 people answer at the same time? Do you just have a party line and say, "Hey guys,
welcome"?
Man, my whole mantra is kind of roll with it. I mean, that's kind of all of real estate is you just got to roll with it, and that's kind of the case with these whole. You don't have to do what Alan just talked about. You don't have to call 3 people at once on Mojo. You can opt to just have it call one person at a time, which is probably the more normal thing to do. But if you're someone like me who understands the importance of quantity over quality, I understand also quality over quantity, but I really understand how important volume is in this industry, and you need to talk to more people than the next person in order to be successful. So for me, I want to get through as many phone numbers as possible. That's how I'm able to call 200 people in 2 hours, is through what Alan's referencing, which is what they call a triple line dialer, which is where it simultaneously calls 3 numbers at once. Whoever picks first, it gives you them. Of course, it prioritizes whoever picks up first. And then a lot of people don't pick up, so that's usually the situation you run into. You only get one person picking up, and the other 2 just weren't going to pick up anyway, so you kind of get to filter through those people faster. But, of course, there are situations where 2 people pick up at once, so on and so forth. And I assure you, Mojo has resources and software to kind of combat that. And I won't go into it too much in detail, but you can kind of learn if you go and buy the triple line dialer that they have plenty of ways to combat that.
And it seems like it's basically a funnel system. You're creating as many contacts as possible, human connection eventually, that's a smaller subset. And then that human interaction gets a smaller subset turns into clients instantly. And another subset is future clients. At least they're in your database, someone you can contact. Do you have any sort of data? Like, you sort of start your day and say, well, I know my 2 hours of calling today is going to turn into 1 buyer within 30 days or 3 buyers within 90 days. Do you have any sort of data at this point, or do you look at it that way at all?
I don't really look at it that way. I know that you probably could average it out over how the bulk of, I've done so much and I have so much data to look at that I probably could average it out to, every so many calls you get this or you get that. But at the end of the day, I really don't care. A lot of people are really focused on the results, and I could kind of care less about the results. It sounds really funny. I have goals and stuff, but I do whatever I can to hit those goals and to aim for those goals. But at the end of the day, I'm not too bent up if I don't hit my goals. Like I said, I'm not focused on the results. The results are awesome, but I'm really focused on is my actions, which is just what I'm doing day to day. And if I can give that everything I got, just knowing that I'm going to go into the office every day that I can, which for me is 6 days out of the 7 days of the week, and really give it everything I got from pretty much 9:30 a.m. till, you guys probably know, we say we get off at a certain time, but we really end up staying at the office till the sun goes down. So give it all I got for, at least 8, 9, 10 hours a day plus. And that if I do that I'll be able to basically yield the highest results possible, whatever they are. I know that, I only have a certain amount of capability as Skylar, and same for you guys. So, we can talk about goals and talk about results all day long, but we can't control those things. There's no way that you can say, I've only closed 10 deals this year and we only have 2 months left in the year. I'm going to guarantee myself that I'm going to close 5 more deals or else I'm going to cry at night, and there's just no way to control that. What you can control, though, is kind of what I'm talking about, which is your actions. You can control you going to the office at a certain time, calling for a certain amount of time, and doing that a certain amount of days of the week and being consistent with it. And if you do all those things, those are just it's kind of the perfect equation for getting good results. Whatever those results may be, you'll reach your full potential if you give it everything you got every day.
typically successful agent, they focus on the process and not on the results. Because if you focus on the process, it's going to lead to results. And just, hold yourself accountable and, just do it over and over again. And you're going to get better and better at it. Whatever it is, cold calling, door knocking, whatever your thing is. I think you found your process and you're motivated to stick to it. And it's going to lead to results.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people do focus on the results, I think, because so many people are impatient. I think we're in a world where people want instant gratification. And I think that if you can wrap your head around staying patient with this whole process, especially real estate, I mean, there's a lot of other industries involved in real estate other than just being a realtor, or a lot of other job positions involved. But really the biggest thing is to be patient. It doesn't come overnight. And I can tell you that, while I'm killing it now, I mean, there was a point in time where I went, it was almost 365 days without making a single paycheck or without making a single dollar. And of course I could have given up, so long ago and not had all the success that I have now. But I just knew that kind of what we're talking about. I'm not focused on the results. Sure, I'm putting in, I still am, but it was at that point where I wasn't making any money, still was putting in 60, 70-hour work weeks and not getting anything. And just because I was able to remove myself from the results, I was able to kind of push through that period of not really seeing anything, and then now reaping the benefits, when my time came, essentially.
So are those people that are trying to call you right now, probably people you called the Mojo this morning?
Yeah, they are. Literally is people that I cold called this morning that did pick up the call me back now.
Sorry to keep you from business.
I'll pick it up for you guys. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, so before we change subject of the cold calls, I really want to know, how do you overcome the call reluctance piece of it? How, I know at this point you probably just you pick up the phone and you don't even think about it, but I'm sure there was a point where you were oh my God, I can't eat, I'm paralyzed, I can't make myself pick up the phone right now. So what is that, how do you talk to yourself internally, and how do you get yourself motivated to pick up the phone and start dialing?
Yeah, good question. I think different people are motivated by different things. And for me, I mean, when I'm answering this, I'm trying to kind of put myself in my shoes when I first started, because that was where I was. Like you said it. Yeah, because at this point, I mean, it really isn't anything. I almost kind of like calling people at this point. It's fun for me to kind of have conversations with new people and, have people kind of get weirded out or curse me out. But back when I started, and that wasn't the case, when I was nervous and when I hadn't done it before and I wasn't good at it or whatever you want to call it. For me, there was about 2 months when I first got licensed where I didn't call consistently. I called people, but it was maybe once or twice a week. And like I said, this was just 2 months when I first started that this occurred. And then after those 2 months happened, I remember this was a specific moment, I got sick for maybe 3 days. And so I stayed home those 3 days, but I still am. And, back when I got my license was as well, really just motivated to learn and to kind of be a sponge to all this real estate stuff that I was getting myself into. So even when I wasn't sick, I was still spending, all my day working, then going home, watching YouTube videos, learning more about real estate, going back in the office, working, going home, learning more about real estate, just a constant cycle, still is. And so when I got sick, it was, instead of going to the office and working and coming home and learning, it was just staying home for 3 days and just learning about real estate while I was sick in bed, getting tired at some point of watching real estate YouTube videos, but just doing it anyways. And there was this one video that really stuck out in my mind where this guy that I was talking about, Ricky Caruth, he interviewed a first-year agent, and this first-year agent did over 100 deals in his first year. And this was no exaggeration. This wasn't a lie. It wasn't like he came from a family of real estate. There was no secret sauce behind it. There wasn't any sort of leverage that this new agent had that other new agents didn't have. It was purely because the new agent sat down every day and made at least 200 cold calls through the Styler system and just talked to people, introduced himself, and then stayed following up with people. And he came from a sports mentality. He was a high school football player, so he kind of had that routine mindset, that kind of discipline that generally sports people who play sports have. And he was able to close 100 deals. It was really over 100 deals in his first year, which to me just blew my mind.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here 2 months in the business, sick at home, thinking, I got to get off my ass. If this guy's closing 100 deals in his first year. And what spoke to me so much was that he didn't come from a family of real estate. He didn't have a bunch of money. There was nothing that allowed him to have a leg up on people. It was purely him putting in the work. And I looked at that and I thought, well, if he can do it, I can do it. So, yeah, and so while I didn't close 100 deals my first year, it still kind of motivated me and put the fire under me to say, shit, I'm going to make, as many calls as I can every day, and I'm not going to give up. I'm just going to keep making the calls every day, because if he proved to do it off of having no leverage over me, then I'm going to do it too. So that was what gave me the fire. Some other people aren't motivated like that. Some other people see that and they compare themselves to that person in a negative way, and it doesn't motivate them. It discourages them. And so for those people, what I've learned, generally speaking, is what motivates those people, or at least kind of gives them the ability to kind of take that first step and start making the calls, is really evaluating your intentions when you call these people, which is kind of what I was talking about with my script earlier, where I'm literally calling to help these people. I really don't care about selling them, and I don't care about overcoming objections. I don't care about trying to turn the conversation into a sell for me. I literally just care about building relationships with these people. There's no strings attached to it. I don't have my own agenda. It is honestly and purely to build a relationship with these people, and whatever happens. I want to help them in whatever way I can. People all the time think I'm wasting time or think I'm crazy because I'll go the extra mile for someone who doesn't even want to sell their house. They might ask me to send them comps. I've helped people, appeal their appraisal before when there was nothing in it for me. They'd never done business with me before, and that's kind of what I would recommend. Is that for those people that are maybe scared about it, is just kind of understand what you're doing when you call these people and where you're coming from. And if you're really can focus on the fact that you're not selling these people, it makes it a lot easier to call, because you're not trying to convince anybody, you're not trying to trick anybody, you're literally just trying to build relationships and build friends with people.
Yeah,
so.
I think that's a really significant kind of mindset shift, to just be able to say like, hey, I'm calling you because I want to help you, right? It just feels very different from like being like kind of having like that sticky, desperate, like, hey, I need to make money. I think like you just come across different on the phone, right? When you're talking to people, you just don't feel like they probably feel very welcome by your call, just because they can sense how your motivation behind a call, So that's awesome. I love it. I love it. That's great.
Yeah, thank you.
Is this a 7 days a week process for you, or you find certain days are better than others, or you just, whenever you're motivated, you're hitting the lines?
Yeah, so it's 6 days a week for me. There's one day that I take off. I take off on Tuesdays. The weekends, most people know that realtors still work on the weekends because all of our buyers are off from their day jobs on the weekends. They want to go see property. So Tuesdays are my good day. It's when my partner is also off. She takes off work on Tuesdays as well. So we just spend time together that day. And then every other day is, to answer your question, is really just cold calling. I cold call in the morning from basically 9:30 till whenever I start having lunch and appointments and stuff, till about 12 or 1. And then the rest of the day is just appointments and stuff like that. Whereas when I first got licensed, I didn't have anything going on. It was really just 8 hours a day, like 9 till 7 or sometimes 8 p.m. calling people.
Do you feel it attracts more buyers or sellers, or has it been pretty equal?
Man, I'm glad you asked, because that's the cool thing about the way that I cold call, and the way that people taught me to cold call, is that when I'm searching for people to call, the key factor is that I'm calling property owners. So they own property. So if they're ever going to do a real estate transaction, they're more than likely going to sell, because they have a property that they have to either unload, or, most people are not of the mentality that we're going to buy as many properties as possible and keep them all. Most people are, we're going to live in this property for 5 years and sell it and buy a new one. So to answer your question, yeah, a lot of it's kind of changing right now, but when I was, all of my deals in the first year were mainly sellers. There were a few buyers in there, but honestly, those buyers were just the sellers that need to sell and buy something. So for me, it did yield a lot more sellers because of the way that I'm cold calling and the relationships that I'm building with these people. And I recommend that for anybody. If you can find, whether it be the way that I do it or a different way, but if you can find a way to target as many property owners in this case, or just people that you imagine are going to sell, I think that's the best way to do it, because sellers really are a great way to leverage your time. Generally speaking, you're spending more marketing dollars on sellers and you're spending more time on buyers. That's kind of the rule of thumb that I've learned.
Yeah.
So I guess you're sort of single-handedly trying to solve our low inventory problem, right? You're calling to inspire these people.
Well, yes and no. It's kind of funny because you say that, and now this year, from the start of 2021, most of my business has been buyers. Not because I've been lead generating buyers, but that's just kind of how it's worked. Just with me personally, I think that a lot of my clients right now are friends, which is funny because usually people start with their friends. And I called all my friends when I got licensed, but let's be real. You guys pointed out I'm really young, and most of my friends, especially when I got licensed, one, aren't even old enough to understand real estate or to want to buy a property. Yeah. Or, for the people that are, older, or maybe my parents' age and stuff like that, I'm just too young and I'm not experienced enough. They didn't trust me at that point. At least that's my theory. So now that I've had more experience and I've expressed that on social media and stuff, people can see that. It has come full circle where now a lot of my clients are friends that are hitting me up because they trust me now, or they've kind of gotten to a point where they're able to buy. So that's kind of how
What is your age for people who can't see you, maybe just listening? Wow, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know there's probably a lot of agents here much older than 23, and that they've been struggling. They've been trying different ways, but this is an easy way. I don't mean that it's easy. It takes effort, but you've given us the tools. This mojo exists for the exact same purpose for other agents. People are doing this in other markets. Your coach in Gulf Shores, and so this is not something that. It just takes time and effort and consistency. And I think this is you're very inspiring, definitely for anyone who's struggling.
Thank you, Alan. Yeah, it's not easy. It's somebody phrased it, it's simple. It's not easy. It's not too many steps you have to take, but it is. I guess, for lack of a better word, a little bit hard to be that consistent with it and put that many hours into it. But,
Yeah, it's like you either have that kind of like, that disciplined mindset, right? And it's always like repetition is always going to win, like whether it's like, picking up the kettlebell every day and, doing, 20 reps a day for the next 5 years is going to get you where you need to go, right? So I feel like with this as well, it's not necessarily that you're saying something special when you call them. It's the fact that you are calling all these people, that you are putting your name out there over and over and over again. And I can just see that, like as years go by, I can just see your, the level of I guess the size of your database is just going to constantly keep growing, and the number of deals that you are going to start pushing through is, you're going to be hiring assistants very soon when these people start coming out. Like, hey, remember that guy, Skylar the Dialer?
Yeah. I got to start using that.
Yeah, that's totally going to be your hashtag, man. I love it.
So you said you would learn about real estate on YouTube. Were you looking up specific questions, or were you learning to be a realtor, or were you just learning about real estate in general? What was your sort of process there, if you don't mind sharing?
No, not at all. Good question, because that kind of brings me into how I got into real estate, which I'm a musician at heart. I play drums, and I still play drums. Like actually today at about 7 p.m. or really about 6 p.m. I'm gonna knock off and then drive 30 minutes to go jam with some friends up in Chamblee. So I still put time into it, but of course more of my time's in real estate now. But before I got into real estate, really all my time was spent playing drums and gigging out with musicians and playing in different groups. And that was kind of what I was aspiring to do with my career, was just to make as much money off the drums as possible. And to make a long story short, just after being more involved and kind of diving myself deeper into the music community, I realized that there's not a lot of opportunity to really make it big in terms of your income as a musician. There are people that make it really big as a musician, but it's even less than realtors, So what got me into real estate was I was renting a practice space for my drums up in Chamblee, where I'm going to drive to today. And I knew how much we were paying in rent for the practice space, and I knew through rumors, I knew a little bit of a backstory on the owners of the building. And so I decided to go around and count all the rooms in the building to kind of do some basic math on how much, income they were producing every month, because that just kind of, got me thinking. And sure enough, they had almost 100 rooms. I knew how much we were paying in rent, and I multiplied that by the amount of rooms they had. And I was like, Jesus, these guys are grossing somewhere between 40 to 50,000 at least a month. And for me, I mean, those still are big numbers, but back then those were astronomical, to me. So I was like, oh my God. And I knew, like I said, through rumors, I knew that the owners were musicians as well. So to me, that was so cool that musicians could be making money off of music, but not the what's the phrase I'm looking for? The normal way. They were doing it off of passive income, off of real estate. And so that got me interested in creating my own rehearsal space, essentially. And so I wanted to kind of, I know nothing about real estate. I just knew how to do math and how to multiply our rent by the amount of doors in the building. And so I started looking at commercial property for myself to buy, or I was naive to buy, like some 20-year-old could just buy a commercial property. And
I love it.
And realized that regardless of my, income, credit history, experience, and all that with investing, I just did not have enough money to buy a commercial property and didn't really know enough about leasing to even know if that was an option for me. And so I decided to try and find ways to up my income so I could hit that goal of how much money I needed to buy a commercial property. Got a fancy restaurant job. Decided that serving tables, while I love serving people, food is not my passion. I don't really care. And once you get into like fancy serving jobs, you do have to care a little bit about the food. You have to know what you're talking about when you talk to these people. And I just didn't care to. So while all this is going on, I am looking at people on YouTube. This is kind of how I got started looking at people on YouTube, was learning what this whole commercial space meant and what it meant to just buy a piece of property. And most of the people on YouTube, the more accessible resources and knowledge I could find on YouTube were people talking about residential property, how to invest in a rental property and stuff like that, as opposed to a commercial property. So really, while I was learning about investing in real estate, I was mainly learning about how to invest in rental properties. But it's still cool to me because I really cared about the passive income was what interested me. Sure, it was cool they were doing it with the music world, but what I really liked is that they were kind of just sitting back and making 40 or 50 grand a month gross, And so I thought, rental properties sound cool too. And most of the people that were educating me on these rental properties were real estate agents, and they basically sold property, and that was how they were able to fund their investing endeavors through real estate. And what they kept saying was they kept mentioning the whole selling real estate thing. And they kept mentioning that as a realtor, you get paid based on production. And that phrase kept sticking out to me because I know my work ethic. I know that I do and have previously outworked all the people in my other restaurant jobs. And with serving tables, you do to a degree get paid based on production, so to speak. You get higher tips when you sell more food. If you give a higher level of service than your next coworker, then, you generally get tipped better. But even then, your managers, I don't know if you guys have any experience serving tables, but your managers cap you out. They say, we want you to give high level of service. We don't want you to be stressed out, so we don't want to overload you with tables. So you're only going to get these 4 tables in this 4 sections. Yeah. And they don't understand your potential, So that always pissed me off. So I basically said, screw that. I still worked my restaurant job while I was getting my real estate license, but it immediately, once I got past the test and got my real estate license, quit the restaurant job and just went full into real estate. Like I said, not making a dollar for like a whole year, but having the family and the resources to be generous enough to give me the bare minimum of what I need to kind of scrape by and, give me that time to kind of develop my business and to start making money off of it. So that's kind of how I got into the whole
As you're sharing your story, we have a lot of parallels. That's very similar to how I got into real estate. I was in New York City. At one time, I thought I'd be a comedian, and you'll know why that career didn't work out. But I was in an improv group, and we always had to have rehearsal spaces. And so there was just these big commercial buildings that would host like dance classes, or you just rent them by the room, by the hour, dance classes or yoga or whatever you want to do. We did our comedy, routines and practice and stuff in there. And I was just like, I want to be the guy who owns this building more than I want to be the guy on stage, because this guy's making money doing nothing, So I started researching real estate for the same means. So that's funny that we came to it.
That is funny. And so my rehearsal space was what they call like lockout rooms, where you have your own room and you rent your own room and you only have the key to that room. But man, those people that do what you're talking about, Alan, where they do the rent by hour, those people must be sitting on money, man. Because they, oh my God, they charge out the ass.
Only places, like we would do it at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, because that was the only time it was available. I mean, this was just a 24-hour operation, and it was just, hey guys, this is the only spot I got, and it was like the rinky-dink place, but we couldn't, New York City's small, you couldn't do this in someone's apartment, kind of thing. But,
there's a demand for it.
Totally. I still remember there was a point in my life when I was also in the studio recording. I was a singer, and so like I still remember those mornings. Like we would always have like the weird, like we would get in at 3 a.m. and then at 7 a.m. we'd be rolling out. And I just remember like walking out of the studio, and it's like, oh my God, it's so bright out here. Like, we've been in this thing all night. So,
that's awesome. That's fun. I didn't know that about you. That's cool.
We need you to sing a theme song for us, Jasmine.
I'll get right on that. I'm much better with numbers, trust me. That's wonderful. I want to know, so being that you are, super young, I want to know, like, what are your thoughts on, like, the future of real estate? Like, where do you see things going over the next 10 years? Like, with all these different, there's just so much technology getting into the space, like, hey, all these different programs that are like, hey, we can buy our house for cash, and, like, all these things pushing and shoving in the real estate industry. Like, if you, just your gut, like, what do you think? Where is everything going to go over the next 10 years?
Yeah, so short term, I think that generally speaking, what we're seeing right now in the market is this kind of influx of demand and an extremely low supply. Mm-hmm. And I don't really see that changing anytime soon personally. A lot of people talk about, they're having a foreclosure crisis being foreseen and coming soon. But in my thought process, and what do I know? But just based off of what I'm seeing, I think that even the foreclosure crisis would not give us enough supply to actually balance out the prices. I think that there's plenty of investors sitting on the sidelines with cash right now that are ready to jump on any foreclosures or any deals that come on the market, that it wouldn't leave enough opportunity for the market to balance itself out. It probably, in my opinion, just stay where it's at now, where real estate prices continue to go up or stay pretty high, and demand is just incredibly high and supply is incredibly low. But long term, if we're talking about like 10 years and stuff, I like to think about what you were kind of talking about, the iBuyer thing, what a lot of realtors are fearing right now, which is that we'll kind of be pushed out or our commission rate will be significantly reduced. And for me, I don't really see that being an issue at all, even long term, even over the next 10 years. I could not see us realtors being pushed out of the industry at all, because it's such a personable business. Even me, or even somebody like my coach Ricky, who does so many deals in Alabama, even somebody like him who's producing over 100 units in a year and killing it and has done it for 20 years, he couldn't come to our market and buy a property himself. He would still need somebody like me to rely on for advice for the Atlanta market. So that, to kind of play on that point, there's just I can't see a world where people won't need to have a personal connection and have a voice-to-voice conversation with a realtor who knows what they're talking about. So to kind of, bring that back into the iBuyer programs and these other people who are kind of trying to come in and get us out of, or, whatever their idea is, I just don't see it happening. I see that, if anything, you can look up their reviews, the people that give discount service and stuff like that, and they just don't provide that level of service that customers need in these real estate transactions, because these are some of the biggest moves and some of the biggest purchases of these people's lives. It's not it's not as simple as picking your ice cream flavor at the ice cream shop. It's something way larger than that, and people need to kind of have somebody that they can talk to and rely on for personable advice based off of their personal experiences in the market. And these iBuyer programs just don't give that. So that's kind of my take on that. And even if, people do talk about how these programs will eventually reduce our commission, these full service realtors' commission. And even if it does, 3% is great. Don't get me wrong. That's generally what we're getting right now as buyers. If you're a buyer's agent or if you're a listing agent, you're generally getting 3% from each transaction, give or take. It's all negotiable. But with all that being said, even if we were to go around to, even if it was to be reduced overall to about 2% for every transaction, in my opinion, still incredibly lucrative. You can make 2% off of transactions and still live a great and, fruitful life. So that's kind of my opinion on it. But. So
I'm going to have you speak for all millennials. I don't know if you refer to yourself as a millennial, but do you find your friends and peers struggling with home ownership and even, or just giving up hope, like things are too expensive, or not? I don't know. That's a loaded question, and I know you're not speaking for everyone, but yeah.
No, you're fine. I think the standard has just changed, and I think it's so important for us realtors moving forward to be able to set the standard for our buyers, especially first-time home buyers, because kind of to play on your point, a lot of the buyers that are my friends that I'm working with right now are first-time home buyers, particularly because of their age group. And so with that being said, I'm finding myself having more conversations where I'm kind of prepping them to write multiple offers. I'm telling them, hey, it's more than likely that our first, second, and third offer probably won't be accepted. Let's just kind of get into a habit of understanding that we're going to have to be writing multiple offers and that we're going to have to be kind of, for lack of a better phrase, throwing spaghetti at the wall, just giving it as many shots as we got.
Right?
So, yeah, and just seeing what happens, because that's kind of the market that we're in. So I I mean, sure, I will agree that it has given, it's discouraged some of my buyers. I have seen it in them. But in the day, we usually find them a home anyways, and it's not a big deal. Sure, they might not have the wide variety or the wide selection that buyers have had in previous markets. But we end up finding something that they love, and it might take a little bit longer, but that's all part of the kind of that initial conversation we need to start having with them, is setting that expectation of, what I usually tell buyers is before COVID, before this kind of supply and demand issue, generally I quote about 2 to 3 months to get you pre-approved, negotiate offers, inspections, and closing the home. But right now I'm honestly, gauging it anywhere between, generally speaking, 3 to 4, sometimes 5 months before you're actually in that home. And so as long as they can expect that and understand that this is how long it's going to take, we're just really setting a new standard in this market. And that new standard is going to maybe take a little bit longer, and you're maybe going to have to give yourself more opportunities. You're going to have to write more offers so you can get one that's accepted, so on and so forth. And maybe even go under contract multiple times because, the inspection report's going to come back bad, or, you're kind of, you're I don't want to say overpaying, you're paying more than what the seller's asking. So once that inspection report comes back, it makes you feel some type of way when you're paying over asking.
And then there's things to fix. I read something that
it makes people feel some type of way. Yeah. So that's all I say.
Yeah, I read a finding that Freddie Mac published that said that we're about 4 million homes short right now, and that's just crazy.
For demand?
It's going to take us a second. Yeah, exactly. So I feel like that it's going to take us a second to dig out of this. I don't know how quickly builders can build an extra 4 million homes, but they need to get on that right now.
Well, yeah, and to play on what you say, it's like and to kind of go back to your question earlier, Alan, about, or really your question, Jasmine, excuse me, about where we see it in 10 years, or really where I see it in the short term, is that, getting 4 million additional properties in the market, that doesn't just happen from some foreclosures. That doesn't just happen from, builders being able to build a few more homes. There needs to be a large surge in supply, in my opinion, to actually balance out the market. So
yeah, and I think like with COVID, I think the supply part of it is also tough because, the cost of materials are going up, and so the builders are struggling as well. So it's a bit of a perfect storm that we're dealing with, but hopefully.
And lenders wouldn't lend for a year to new construction builders. With coronavirus, they're like, well, we're going to wait this out, and so everything just paused for a year. That's a big part, and supplies went up. But man, that's great. Skylar, this has just been a great interview. We appreciate everything, all your knowledge. If I wasn't looking at you and I heard you on the phone, I would think you've been doing this 900 years,
That's what happens when you talk to 200 people a day. Yeah. You're really good at this talking to people thing.
No kidding.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for the inspiration, and we really appreciate the time you put into it. So we look forward to hearing about your upcoming successes, and we'll stay in touch with you.
Yeah,
thank you so much, Jasmine and Alan, for having me on the podcast. It's been great.
Appreciate it. I don't know if you have any social media or anything you want to pitch or promote, but if people want to follow you, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, I'm the most active on Instagram. You guys can find me. It's just my first and last name, which is just Skylar Brillante, or at Skylar Brillante. Also on Facebook. If you want to go to my website, you can go to skylarbrillante.com. And really all my in terms of my cell phone number, email, that's all on Instagram. You guys can reach out to me either through Instagram directly, my phone number, my email. I really don't care, but I'm always happy to help.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you very much. And sorry to keep you from the phones for an hour.
All good. Happy to talk to you guys.
We'll see you soon.
Thank you. All right.
Thanks.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye-bye. See you guys.
Thank you for listening to the Agent Upgrade Podcast. If you are an agent looking for a new mortgage lender, start with Jasmine at jasmineteam.com. If you want to learn about real estate investing and working with investors, check in with Alan at thehouseofac.com. See you next time on Agent Upgrade.